The office was celebrating the firing of a man who had spent 6 years keeping the company running when no one else wanted to stay late. There were cupcakes in the break room, laughter around the conference table, and one woman proudly telling everyone that she had finally gotten rid of the problem employee. But at that exact moment, 3 floors above them, the company's owner walked into his office, opened an urgent report, and froze. His face went pale as he asked the one question nobody expected to hear. "Where is Marcellus?" The room suddenly became silent. Before we uncover what happened to Marcellus, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Wisdom Story House if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging someone by their circumstances. Marcellus Reed was 38 years old, a black single father raising his 9-year-old son, Cairo, in a small apartment on the east side of the city. His life was not glamorous, but it was honest. Every morning, while the city was still waking beneath a clear blue sky, Marcellus prepared breakfast, packed Cairo's lunch, checked his homework folder, and made sure his son's shoes were tied before walking him to school. Then he took the bus downtown to work at Sterling Meridian Logistics, a company whose polished glass headquarters looked nothing like the modest neighborhood where he lived. Marcellus worked as a facilities and operations coordinator. His official job description sounded simple, but everyone who actually knew the company understood how much he carried. He noticed leaking pipes before they became floods, caught electrical problems before they became outages, helped delivery drivers find missing shipments, stayed late when equipment failed, and quietly fixed problems that executives often never even knew existed. He had a talent for seeing trouble before it arrived. Yet because his job title was not impressive, many people treated him as if he were invisible. The person who disliked him most was Vanessa Crowley, the newly promoted regional operations manager. Vanessa was 34, ambitious, polished, and determined to climb the corporate ladder as quickly as possible. She wore expensive suits, carried a tablet everywhere, and measured people by how useful they were to her career. Marcellus bothered her because he never acted impressed by her title. He was respectful, but he did not flatter her. Worse, he occasionally pointed out problems in her plans that could have cost the company thousands of dollars. At first, Vanessa simply ignored him. Then she began documenting tiny mistakes. A late arrival by 3 minutes. A missing signature. A maintenance request that had been filed under the wrong department. Nothing serious, but enough to create a paper trail. Marcellus noticed what was happening, yet he stayed calm because he needed the job. His son depended on his paycheck. Their rent, groceries, school supplies, and every ordinary necessity of life depended on him coming home employed. One Tuesday morning, everything changed. Marcellus arrived at work shortly after 8 and immediately noticed something wrong in the main distribution control room. A warning indicator on one of the company's automated systems was flashing intermittently. He reported it and recommended shutting down a section before technicians inspected it. Vanessa dismissed the concern, insisting the system was operating normally. Marcellus quietly documented the warning and went back to work. By lunchtime, the warning had disappeared. By mid-afternoon, Vanessa called Marcellus into a conference room. There were 2 supervisors sitting beside her, both avoiding eye contact. On the table was a folder with his name on it. Marcellus immediately understood. Vanessa told him the company was terminating his employment because of repeated performance concerns. The words sounded professional, but Marcellus knew exactly what they meant. He had been pushed out. He asked about the evidence. Vanessa slid several documents across the table. Most were insignificant. One contained a maintenance delay that had actually happened because Vanessa had refused to authorize the repair. Another accused him of failing to report a system issue, even though his written report was sitting in the company's database. Marcellus stared at the papers. He could have shouted. He could have accused her. He could have demanded justice. Instead, he quietly asked for a copy of his employment records. Vanessa smiled as if she had won a game. Marcellus packed his belongings into a cardboard box and walked through the bright lobby beneath the company's enormous glass ceiling. Employees looked up as he passed. Some looked uncomfortable, others pretended not to notice. He held the box against his chest and kept walking. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright, the sidewalks crowded, and the city continued moving as if nothing had happened. But for Marcellus, everything had changed. He sat on a bench near a downtown fountain and stared at his phone. He had $11 in his checking account until his final payment arrived. His rent was due in 9 days. Cairo needed new school shoes. The refrigerator at home was already nearly empty. For a few minutes, he simply sat there. Then his phone rang. It was Cairo. Marcellus answered with a smile he did not feel. His son excitedly told him about a science project he had completed at school. He described a cardboard solar system he had built with painted planets and proudly announced that his teacher had called it one of the best projects in the class. Marcellus listened. He praised his son. He promised they would celebrate that evening. Then he ended the call and lowered his head. A tear slipped down his cheek. He wiped it away before anyone could see. That evening, Marcellus cooked the last chicken breasts in the refrigerator and turned them into sandwiches. He helped Cairo finish his homework, laughed at his son's terrible science jokes, and acted as though everything was normal. Cairo eventually went to his bedroom. Marcellus sat alone at the kitchen table. He opened his laptop and began searching for work. He applied for 8 positions before midnight. The next morning, he applied for 12 more. For several days, rejection emails filled his inbox. Some employers wanted different qualifications. Others offered wages too low to support his family. One interviewer looked at his employment history and asked why he had left Sterling Meridian. Marcellus simply said that the position had ended. He refused to speak badly about Vanessa. Meanwhile, Vanessa was celebrating. She told coworkers that removing Marcellus had been one of her best management decisions. She even joked during lunch that the company was finally free from dead weight. That same afternoon, the company's owner, Adrian Vale, returned from a 3-week overseas business trip. Adrian was 51 and known for being demanding but fair. He had built Sterling Meridian from a small transportation company into a national operation. He believed strongly in numbers, systems, and accountability, but he also believed that good employees were the foundation of a successful company. When he entered his office, his executive assistant handed him a stack of reports. One report immediately caught his attention. It concerned a major equipment failure that had nearly interrupted the company's largest distribution contract. Adrian read the incident summary. The report said the system malfunction had occurred without warning. But beneath that statement was a maintenance record. A warning had been reported 2 days before the failure. The employee who reported it was Marcellus Reed. Adrian looked up. He asked for the operations manager. Vanessa entered his office with confidence, expecting praise for keeping the department efficient during his absence. Adrian asked her about Marcellus. Vanessa smiled. She proudly explained that she had terminated him because of performance problems. Adrian slowly placed the report on his desk. He asked whether she had reviewed Marcellus's maintenance warning before the equipment failure. Vanessa hesitated. Adrian asked again. This time, she admitted that she had seen it but believed it was unnecessary to stop operations. The atmosphere in the office changed instantly. Adrian requested every document connected to Marcellus's termination. Within 30 minutes, he discovered that the disciplinary records had been altered after the termination decision. Several complaints against Marcellus had been entered under dates when he was not even working. Adrian's expression hardened. He ordered an internal audit. The results were worse than anyone expected. Marcellus had prevented at least 4 major operational problems during the previous year. His warnings had saved the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. His final maintenance report had potentially prevented a catastrophic failure from becoming even more expensive. And the employee Vanessa had called dead weight had actually been one of the most reliable people in the building. Adrian immediately asked the question that stopped the room. Where is he? Nobody knew. Marcellus had not answered calls from the company because he assumed they were trying to protect themselves. Adrian found his emergency contact information through the company's personnel system and drove to Marcellus's neighborhood himself. When Adrian reached the apartment building, he saw Marcellus outside carrying groceries in a paper bag. Marcellus recognized him immediately. For a moment, neither man spoke. Adrian apologized. Not a corporate apology. Not a carefully prepared statement. A real apology. He told Marcellus that he had reviewed the records and understood what had happened. Marcellus listened quietly. Adrian offered him his job back, along with a promotion to operations safety supervisor and authority to review the company's maintenance procedures. Marcellus looked toward the apartment window where Cairo was watching from behind the curtain. He told Adrian that he appreciated the offer, but he needed more than a paycheck. He needed respect. Adrian nodded. He promised him that. The next morning, Marcellus returned to Sterling Meridian. The same employees who had watched him leave with a cardboard box now watched him walk through the lobby again. But this time, he was not carrying his belongings. He was carrying a new identification badge. Operations Safety Supervisor. Vanessa was removed from management pending a formal investigation. The company also changed its reporting system so employees could raise safety concerns without fear of retaliation. But the most meaningful moment came later that afternoon. Adrian walked into the operations floor and publicly thanked Marcellus for protecting the company when nobody was listening. Marcellus did not smile because of the promotion. He smiled because his son had been right that morning. Cairo had told him that sometimes people don't see your value until you stop doing everything for them. Those words stayed with him. Months later, Marcellus used part of his new salary to start a small scholarship program for working parents in his neighborhood. He remembered what it felt like to sit on that downtown bench with $11 in his account and no idea how he would protect his child's future. He never forgot the feeling. And he never allowed success to make him forget where he came from. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Marcellus and Cairo stood outside a community center as children received backpacks and school supplies through the program. Cairo watched his father proudly. Marcellus looked at the children and realized something. Losing his job had felt like the end. But sometimes, what feels like rejection is simply a painful doorway into a better chapter. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, leave a comment, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope on a difficult day. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment, kindness still matters, if you believe that a person's worth should never be measured by their job title, their appearance, or the mistakes others claim they have made. Marcellus never became famous. He never appeared on television. He never received a giant award. But every morning, when he watched Cairo walk confidently into school, he knew he had won something more important than a promotion. He had shown his son that dignity could survive rejection. That patience could outlast humiliation. That honesty could eventually speak louder than lies. And most importantly, he taught Cairo that when the world tells you that you are not valuable, you should never let someone else's judgment become your identity. Because sometimes the person everyone celebrates for firing is the very person the boss desperately needs to find. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is carrying the strength that keeps the whole building standing.